Welcome to Columbia Conclave, and this recording was done in PSL Lanka. We thank PSN for that support. So myself and Lahiru, we were lucky to speak to two individuals who actually did quite an organic development of an ML model to a very general use case in Sri Lanka. Actually, when I met Rukshan initially, I had a conversation. I thought this is something that the world should hear, which is what I thought. Which is why I thought, okay, let's use the Columbia Conclave as a platform across that. So in summary, we'll just give you guys some sort of an idea what that conversation was, so that you can probably go to that long recording and then listen to it in detail. So one area that I really liked what Rukshan did was to put together that internal audit department, because typically for us, especially coming from IT, we are used to internal audit where it's primarily financial. It's about a very intrusive, very policing sort of a thing. And obviously it's done as a post-mortem after everything has been done. So Rukshan very nicely put it across where he brought internal audit from where it was a outside point of view to an internal point of view, and very helpful to the organization, and brought various, I wouldn't say controls, but more of a structure into it, so that internal audit can be used as a helpful unit, right? Yes. And love the way that Rukshan detailed how the organization was built up, so you guys can hear about that. And then we moved into the point where how the system development happened. And we found that the way that the development happened, this just remembering this is about 10 years back, started back in the so this is where AI was much primitive, nobody spoke about much about it, especially outside the tech community. It wasn't. So that was really nice to hear about that. So Lahiru, can you maybe add a few points where you found between interesting?
So yes, it's very interesting. The interesting part is that they actually did this data collection, but they were not having enough facilities. Yes, so they had certain constraints. I would say they had certain constraints on point of view of budgetaries. But the good thing is that they had people who were courageous enough. Also, they were encouraged to develop a system, and they could motivate the internal teams to get it done. That's the important part of it. So through our discovery or this discussion that we had with them, Rukshan, what we could identify is that they had certain ways to data extraction. And they mentioned that they could extract.
So that was a benefit they had.
That was a benefit.
It was there. It was already there. So it's sometimes when you intend to ML, the issue is that there's no data.
There's not.
But the good thing about the domain that Rukshan there was enough data, right?
Yes.
So that was something plus, right?
Yeah, that was something plus. They had enough data and they had a place to store it.
Yeah.
They had data lakes, and then primitively they had multiple data points. This was the chaotic situation that they were facing. And from that, what they did, they actually could build ETLs. So data could be extracted, and then they actually had a transformation. So this transformation, they could think into different ways that how they can test data. And then they loaded the data. So in their discussion, they explained that they could store data in data marts. So certain data marts were there. And they had to think in a way that even though they didn't have this mechanism like solutions architecture or any structured approach, even though it's unstructured, but they had this courage to do it in a way that they thought for certain specific algorithm, we have to design this data mart which is going to be work on that. So they actually had this idea. It is the good thing. And then on top of that, they built the data marts and they started the training part. So the challenge that they had in the journey, Rukshan, so they couldn't go for a supervised training. They had to go for unsupervised training. So they didn't know the patterns that they are going to observe. So they had to go for unsupervised. In today's terms, we have this structural way of working.
Yeah.
But at the time, I think 10 years before, they didn't have this structural way of working on that. So they didn't.
It's also fair even to hear that term unsupervised, because probably that came out sort of later as a technical term. Right?
That came, yes. Yeah. Nowadays, it's a very, I would say, long term for anyone. But 10 years back, they did it.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. And then not only that,
also let's bring right now. This system was built on top of large enterprise systems of software.
Yes.
Now, typically, somebody would ask, wouldn't a typical surveillance system would it trigger such fraud detection and things like that?
Yes.
But given naturally an organization grows,
Yes.
it's not built on a single application. We have some host of many applications, and as very well what Arjun pointed out, there were quite a few homegrown applications also.
Yes.
So there's a point where these systems detection is not centrally looked after, right? So obviously ML model is needed.
Yes.
And it's very untypical where internal audit department comes up with this.
Yes.
It's probably some AI or specialized security team actually brings it up, but I found very interesting that it was internal audit department.
It was very interesting. So they mentioned that they had this internal audit department where they were very unlikely to have these technical skills. Yeah, so we know that the typical auditors are not into that.
Yeah.
But they know the process part of it. They have the process expertise, but two parties could work together. So they mentioned that they had these IT auditors and their typical auditing teams. They could gel together. They could work together to build this system. That's a good part.
Okay.
And even the first time, I'm hearing that this typical auditing department could gain this benefit. And they could.
The organization can gain such benefits.
Yes, so it's a collaborative way of working. Even many of us can think of such new things.
Yeah.
So.
And given especially a lot of the tech communities connected with developed markets, we serve the developed markets.
Yes.
So this is a case where the IT technology was used to do something for the local market.
Yes, yes.
And this is a use case where it can be replicated quite well across many organizations, especially in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
And given that it was done with a small laptop,
yes.
A few interns,
yes,
a few people who learn systems by themselves,
yes,
and 10 years back.
10 years back also.
And with the current GenAI facilities that are there with Cloud and all these things,
yeah,
the possibilities are immense.
Yes,
and particularly, especially for university graduates who are just entering the IT domain,
yes,
there's especially the case of lack of internships now.
Yes,
we can find such use cases where they can actually go to commercial production of applications,
definitely,
which a lot of ways.
Yes,
where sometimes large companies can't do this also.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's correct. That's true.
Yeah,
and it's very interesting.
Anything you want to add as a wrap?
Yes, Rukshan. Yes, so just to wrap up, is that they were having this correct, and they were very. The passion is important. So it's hard to have this passion.
Yeah.
So yes, to start a passion.
Yeah.
And a lot of midnight oil. We could hear that they work day and night.
Yeah.
And they didn't know certain tools that they should use, and that's the important thing of this entire journey. And they have used algorithms, and they were talking about the algorithms, and they had certain constraint of going for the algorithms that we have in today's top-notch algorithms.
Yeah.
It's unlike today, 10 years before.
Yeah.
And they could use the combination of algorithms to bring it up to the level that they wanted. And then they could go for, in today's terms, classifications and predictions. So both of things that they have achieved 10 years before.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And through the prediction, they could start alerting. Let's say like some sort of a fraud, before some sort of fraud happens, they could alert, and there is a possibility of fraud to happen. And guys go and look. So they could give this message to the business.
Yeah.
And also they could continue this learning. They had this continuation, the process continuation, that even though they had certain algorithms that is trained, they didn't stop there. They did this continuation. And this is the good part. So this is the entire thing that we could extract to the audience.
Yeah, so I'll be the audience to check out the whole recording. So it will be time well worth spent. Right?
Yes.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.